Welcome back. You might be thinking that 3 months might be an excessive amount of time for me to spend on an intermission video, especially one of this little length, but that's just because of all the behind the scenes shenanigans I've been up to lately. Anyway, I think it's time you guys get a look at my new base. Like I said at the end of the last episode, my base in the overworld was quickly becoming difficult to work in and a pain to expand, so I decided to move into a void world. Currently, we are in the main hub area, which honestly has very little going on besides for my applied energistics system and some other things. This here is a storage mic monitor that displays some of my high quantity items. It's not very useful at displaying items of which I have over 1,000,000, but it looks cool, I guess. I didn't really want to have to use AE2 at all in this run, but after several hours of trying to get other storage systems to work, I had to cut my losses and set up these controllers. If I'm going to do AE2, I'm going to do it right, which means I'm going to go all the way with channel efficiency. I've also put my draconic energy orb up in the roof, but it sort of needs a facade. Yeah, if it isn't clear by now, this base is still incomplete. After all, I do want to leave room for improvement later on in the pack. Embedded in the floor, I've got a Tech Reborn fusion reactor, which is currently doing absolutely nothing. I don't know why I built it, as it doesn't become relevant until a few chapters' time, and the entire operation was a massive hassle that involved me nearly permanently breaking the world, but at least I won't have to deal with building it later, I guess. The trophy room is a very last-minute work-in-progress thing I've got going on, where I plan to display all the trophies the quest book grants me, plus some other stuff I collect throughout the pack. Now we're moving on to the main base. A large portion of the main hallway here is empty, as it was built purely to connect the hub to a section further down the line, so I'm just going to pop off to the second floor before touring the lower part of the hallway. Here we've got the black hole units that store the high quantity goods displayed over in the hub. Most of these items are produced by a mystical agricultural section we'll get to later. Continuing down the left side of the hallway, I have storage for the different types of blood magic steels. Behind the drawers, I've got the area where the steels are actually produced, along with where the modularium casings from last episode are produced as well. Rest in peace, old modularium casing setup. You will be dearly missed by someone. So there isn't really much upstairs, so now we're at the opposite end of the base from the hub. The first main attraction here is my secondary power production, being 4 compression engines along with their fuel source. While they still produce a decent amount of power, they've recently been eclipsed by a much better power source, which we'll get to shortly. This small area makes components for items from extreme reactors. It's not that interesting. This steam boiler also makes components for items from extreme reactors. Next door though, I've got the maximum tier of EMC Link automated, which also happens to require the automation of Gaia spirits. Is it the fastest automation in the world? Not really, but since a patch to the pack made the first tier of EMC Links a pain in the ass to craft, this automation has saved me a lot of time overall. When I first got into AE2, the entire process was very rushed, so my component production is questionable at best. Ignoring that, we can move into one of the secondary production wings. This area produces some thermal fluids used throughout the base and duplicates some Advent of Ascension ores, which are used for things like the EMC links. This area also contains where I grow all my crops, which is by far the best performing resource generation method I have and will probably continue to be for the foreseeable future. Continuing on, there's my bee area. The first floor is dedicated to breeding and duplication, and as you can see, is sort of a mess. Because of the nature of bee breeding, it's probably going to be this way forever, seeing as the more bees I breed, the more strange requirements I have to meet. Continuing upwards, there's the production areas, where the bees get their own futuristic pods to hang out in and make resources. Once I complete this area, it's probably going to be my favorite in the base. What's that below the production area? Well, it's where I make all the power for the base. I've got 4 pseudo-optimized nuclear reactors boiling away tens of thousands of millibuckets of water. As you can see, thanks to this handy display I have, quite a large buffer of yellorium fuel, which has been refusing to deplete for as long as I can remember. This bodes better than the compression engines, whose coin fuel source's renewability is questionable at best. The steam produced by these reactors is sent down below them to the turbine area, where I've got 4 each producing 200,000 RF a tick. While they are far from being in the most optimized state, I'm too lazy to bother playing with the numbers, and I'm not currently concerned about having too little energy. Back in the main hall, I have my cryo-stabilized flux duct production, which is a staple for any proper modded base. Next door, I've got infinity dust duplication along with some miscellaneous processing for when times get tough. Across the hall, I've got the assembly wing, where I'm making things like nuclear craft reactor casings for the next chapter and some Ender IO capacitors. Continuing along, I have several of the pack's custom multi-blocks, with the most important being the pink one I just passed and the mythical resource crucible, which is still producing dimensional essence for my void miners. Speaking of my void miners, I now have all 3 of the ones available in chapter 2, all feeding into a subnetwork for easy item handling. At the end of this bridge, I also have the area where blood magic crystal clusters are grown and harvested using several rituals for the purpose of being forged into steel. Back below the assembly wing, the gravitite blocks from the pink multi-block I mentioned earlier are empowered with my Empowerer array from last episode. Next to the array, I also have a setup for all the magical crystals from Electroblop's wizardry, which was sorta made defunct after I used the crystals it produced to make a callstone that just allowed me to trade for them. But I still think the setup's really cool. Back in the main hall again, this sort of clunky setup's in charge of producing extended crafting components. It is rather slow, but again, anything to reduce tedium in crafting is worth it to me. Next up is the trusty DML area, which is probably responsible for most of my base's energy consumption. Regardless, it produces a lot of obscure items I wouldn't be able to otherwise automate, so it's definitely worth it. Across the way is the alloy smelting array I had in the last base, just with some extensions. It was actually the first part of this base I built, seeing as the hub wasn't even an idea in my head until I was confronted with the inevitability of AE2. Over in a separate complex, I house all my Botania junk. I've got Elementium, Pixie Dust, Mana Steel, and the pure Daisy blocks automated over here, along with a pretty good mana source. Downstairs, I have a fairly robust setup that automates a lot of the fabrics from Bewitchment along with Primal Mana, which can be used to speed up my AoE or duping over in the production wing. And yeah, that's pretty much the base. I know this video is much shorter than the last one, and its length isn't really proportional to the time it took to make, but that's really just because a lot of the work done here was behind the scenes. Anyway, I did promise a sped up building segment in the last video, so here you go.